Nigel Hughes calls for transparency in state asset transfers in response to Vice President of Guyana's statement. Prominent attorney and political figure Nigel Hughes has issued a call for greater transparency in the transfer of state assets following a recent press release from the Vice President of Guyana. Hughes emphasized the need for a full disclosure of state resources allocated to private individuals during the 27 years of the People's Progressive Party, PPP, in government, urging a comparative analysis of asset transfers that occurred under both the PPP and the APNU plus AFC coalition government. In his response, Hughes highlighted that the PPP has been in office for 85% of the time since 1992, raising concerns about the transfer of assets and awarding of contracts to party supporters. He stressed that this is not a matter of propaganda but a call for the release of raw data and detailed information to the public to ensure transparency and accountability in state affairs. The country deserves to know who the beneficiaries of these transactions are, especially as the President has invited us to engage in a serious discussion about corruption, Hughes said. We must have access to the information regarding the allocation of resources, including the criteria used for the transfer of valuable assets, such as the Kanji and Kaicho oil blocks, which were allocated without public advertisement just 1 month before the 2015 elections. Hughes also pointed to questionable practices in public procurement, citing a recent road construction contract where 26 qualified bidders were disqualified in favor of a single company, whose bid was $600 million over the engineer's estimate. He emphasized that inflated contract awards should not be paraded as evidence of development without scrutiny. In light of the ongoing concerns, Hughes reiterated his call for transparency in the management of public resources. He urged the government to make the data available for public analysis, stressing the importance of transparency in all future state asset transfers and public contract awards to ensure that they are conducted in a fair and equitable manner. Hughes concluded by stating that the nation must move beyond rhetorical discussions on corruption and focus on factual, data-driven approaches to ensure the fair distribution of state resources for the benefit of all Guyanese.
I think we should start and remember that between 1992 and today, some 32 years have passed. The PPP has been in office for 27 of those 32 years. That is 85% of the years between 1992 and now. There has been a single government, 85%, a single government in the People's Progressive Party. Therefore, when we start to ask questions about the transfer of assets from the state to private individuals who support the People's Progressive Party, we don't want to make a propaganda out of this. What we say is, let us have the data, let us have the raw information on all the assets of the state that have been transferred to private individuals during the 27 years that the People's Progressive Party has been in office. And if there were transfers of assets during the 5 years the AP and UAFC were in office, let us compare them, and then we can begin to see who the beneficiaries of those actions are. As Mr. Jagdeo has invited us to address the issue of corruption, he perhaps would like to tell us why within the last month before the 2015 elections, 2 oil blocks during an election campaign period where the government activity is supposed to be reduced to just running the basics, why 2 oil blocks, the Kanji and Kaicho blocks, were actually allocated. There was no public advertisement. There was no invitation to purchase. There has been no criteria provided on the basis upon which those 2 oil blocks were allocated. Those blocks have since changed hands at millions of US dollars, and these were allocated within a month of the 2015 election. So if we want to have a serious discussion as a country about corruption, which we should, we must be willing to discuss corruption, because the track record that we have got as a country suggests that with the wealth that we have, all that we are going to do is become a rich banana republic. We are not going to achieve anything other than that. We become a rich banana republic with lots of roads, lots of hotels. Most of the citizens can't even afford to survive because of the cost of living. And we have these vacuous discussions about corruption that are not based on any sort of data. The government has access to all the information that can be provided to the public on the allocation of resources, on the transfer of assets, on the allocation of companies. How many companies which have been receiving major contracts in road construction have a track record of being more than 20 years old or 10 years old? In the Schooner example, the company that won the MP tab completely disqualified every single other competitor and bidder for that contract.
26
and
of them.
26 companies, including the most qualified, some of the most qualified contractors in this country, disqualified, leaving one company only, and then that company, their bid is about $600 million over the estimate, the engineer's estimate. Do you understand the scale of absolute, I want to say, unusual conduct that is taking place? This case, they completely eliminate 26 contractors, several of our best and brightest. And the contract is awarded at several $100 million over the engineer's contract. And then you want to come and parade to the public that this is a sign of development. Look at the road, look at the lights. Well, of course, if you gave anybody $600 million more than the estimate that the engineer did, they could put up a lot of lights. They will give you something looking like a road, but exactly what it is. And we have as a country to start locating our discussions not in the realm of the emotive, not in the realm of propaganda, but let us come to the area of data and information. And finally, last year we spent $1 billion from the National Resource Fund. That is no mean sum. Even in the United States of America, $1 billion is serious money. Can you identify one significant project that you can see right now in this country that says, hey, this is a significant contract? You could build a railroad between Diamond and Georgetown for less than half of $1 billion. You can find transportation solutions for less than $200 million to deal with the crisis we have. We have an incomplete bridge, and we have the promise, the absolute promise, that future projects of significance are not going to be subject to feasibility studies. Yes, we are all happy that there'll be no tolls to pay, but what is the price of that? And where does that fit in the development plan? Where was there a discussion that, look, the bridges over our major rivers are going to be toll-free? When was the National Assembly invited to discuss this as a proposal? So yes, you may have grand vote-getting gestures, and I would like to commend the editorial of the Stabric News, I think it was sometime last week, because at the end of the day, whether you are wealthy or not, your ability to sustain yourself depends on locating whatever you do within the realm of financial responsibility, fiscal responsibility, and feasibilities. And a feasibility study is not limited to numbers. The feasibility study would take into account all the developmental plans that you have. And what do you lose? The bridges and the tolls will run you to more than $1.5 billion. And we still have today teachers that we are refusing to pay. We still have today people who are struggling with the cost of living. We still have today people who are not going to be qualified to be able to get jobs. And we want to go down the line of this rhetorical abuse, as if we are possessed of no brains, or as if we are possessed of no ability to think. This is all the Emperor's New Clothes revisited.
Thank you.